dementia residents and dementia units can think, understand and communicate to various degrees. And I found the residents that were the most literate were the ones that did crosswords and quizzes. And because of that ability to be able to complete these crosswords and quizzes, they could communicate well and clearly. And also those that read had a big advantage as well. But surprisingly, there were some dementia residents who didn't do either of these things, crosswords, quizzes, or reading, but they still had the cognition, they would still think things through, and they could still analyse. So it varies with everybody. The woman that was really the leader of the pack where I worked did all aspects, communicated well, was great at quizzes and crosswords, inspired others, got the group going, but equally her best friend didn't read at all, and she was just had the cognition equal to her and was very good at being able to communicate and be part of the group. And there was another gentleman, very bright, very intelligent, excellent at history, and he could contribute to any topic on any decade practically, certainly century, all throughout the ages, because we used to do a lot of workshops on history, you know, the Renaissance and the Roman era and medieval ages and Napoleon, and they used to love all of that. Of course, I like history and reading too, so it tied in. And he would be able to offer a comment on every aspect that we were discussing. But he didn't read. I think he must have been a reader before, surely, but in the unit didn't read anything, but was totally cognitive, totally lucid and alert, perfect memory in terms of history, didn't miss a beat. And I said to him one day, how is it that you managed to be able to retain and remember all of this history? And he said, everything I know, I learned in the army, all the army history. I found that pretty incredible, that the army would teach you everything about history, but apparently he said right back to Mesopotamia, it's all army history. Well, that's what, 3,000 years ago. And so he must have specialised in that, I presume. But anyway, whatever it was, it served him well, because after breakfast, 9 o'clock, lie on his bed, 1 hour of thinking. You could see when I used to go and say good morning to him, you could see him lying on the bed, alert, astute, and thinking. He would never be sleeping, but he was, I think, thinking all of these things through and retaining this information without reading. Remarkable, because I always used to think that to retain knowledge, one had to read to keep the cognition going. But with him, he didn't. And there was another example, not to such a high degree, but a woman who was a former school teacher, and she became a friend of the one who was very into reading and crosswords and quizzes. And she'd sit by her friend and think, observe, look and listen, but she wouldn't read. She didn't like crosswords or quizzes. She did join in the workshops and contributed well to those, but just like the gentleman from the army, it was her thinking and cognition that paved the way for her. And when I was speaking to her one day, she was really good at explaining to me about the dementia experience and what people need. And she was very for the fact that she said people need support and they need to understand that you've been through it as well, and that when the dementia blanks happen, just encourage the person that everything's okay, it will pass. Whereas her friend was very much into giving tons of advice and often overloading people. But this one woman was just so compassionate and kind. And whenever anyone was going through a stressful dementia blank experience, I used to get her to sit by them, and she'd just sit and help by saying, you know, everything will be all right, dear. We've all been through it. It will pass. It will take time, but soon everything will be all right. And it was just that calmness and that experience and that wisdom that enabled people to settle with her presence. But certainly she didn't read either. So everyone has their own way of learning. I am also experiencing, and you don't need to be a massive reader to be able to learn and listen and engage, but you do have to have a method to keep the cognition going, whatever that is. And dementia residents taught me a lot, so much in this area as to how this can be done. Marvellous dementia residents. So I've written about these topics and more in these 2 books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, companion books, both on Amazon, and everything about them in the description below on my website as well. So thank you so much for your views and your likes and your surge of subscriptions on YouTube following Granny there. She's taking off somehow. And thank you for your support, and please pass on the links. Thank you.